In Viking history, one name shines above all. Lagertha, a shield maiden of unbreakable will, who defied the age of men. Her courage forged legends, her strength inspired warriors. Was she myth or a true warrior queen? Tonight, we uncover the truth of Lagertha.
Snow fell silently over the northern fjords. No clash of steel, no roar of men, only the whisper of wind curling between the mountains. In that stillness, a figure stood, shield in hand, her breath turning to mist in the frozen air. The sagas would one day call her Lagertha, the Shieldmaiden. Some said she was flesh and blood, a woman who defied the fate of her time. Others swore she was only a story, born of firelight and imagination. But in moments like these, when silence ruled the world, her presence felt as real as the ice beneath one's feet. The Viking world was not a gentle place. To survive here meant to fight. Against hunger, against the sea, against the enemies who lurked beyond the horizon. Men carved their destinies with sword and axe, leaving their names in blood and fire. Women, too, bore the weight of survival, though their struggles often went unsung. Yet there were tales of women who raised shields, who stood in the shield wall beside their brothers. And none shone brighter in those tales than Lagertha. Her legend begins with danger. Ragnar Lothbrok, the warrior who would become a king, was said to have fought a battle so desperate that he needed every hand, every blade to survive. Among those who came to his side was a woman with braided hair and eyes like sharpened steel. She did not stand at the back. She did not shrink behind men. She placed her shield in the wall, lifted her spear, and fought as though the gods themselves had chosen her. When the clash of battle thundered, when arrows darkened the sky, she stood unbroken. Ragnar saw her, and the sagas tell us he admired not only her courage but her beauty. She became his wife, or so the story claims. But here the line between truth and myth begins to blur. For all the sagas tell of Lagertha's valor, history remains silent. The chronicler Saxo Grammaticus, writing centuries after these supposed events, described her in his tales. He painted her as a warrior who could outfight men and outwit kings. Yet many historians doubt his words. Was she real? Or was she a symbol, a poetic invention meant to embody the strength of Viking women in memory, if not in fact? And yet, her image endures. In the sagas, she is not only brave but fierce. One tale speaks of her home, guarded by a lion and a bear, creatures as savage as her spirit. When Ragnar sought to win her, he had to kill the beasts, proving himself worthy. Did such animals truly guard her door? Almost certainly not. But the story is powerful. The lion and bear were symbols of the wild danger around her, and perhaps of the ferocity she herself embodied. Imagine her in those moments, shield glinting in torchlight, her presence commanding respect in a hall filled with warriors. The crackling of the fire, the smell of roasted meat, the clinking of cups filled with mead, all fell silent when she entered. A woman in a world of men, yet unafraid. Her legend insists she was not merely Ragnar's wife, but his equal. She fought beside him, advised him, stood against enemies with a courage that rivaled his own. But was it truly so? Archaeology tempts us with tantalizing clues. In Birka, the burial site of a great warrior was long assumed to hold a man. The grave contained swords, armor, and 2 horses, clear signs of a warrior's resting place. But when the bones were tested, they belonged not to a man but to a woman. Could this have been Lagertha? Or was she another, forgotten warrior, erased by time? The discovery fuels the legend, blurring the line between truth and saga even further. The storm of history and myth rages like the seas Vikings once sailed. To the skalds who told the sagas, Lagertha was a warrior of unmatched strength. To historians, she remains a question mark, her name drifting between fact and fiction. But perhaps that is the power of her story, that it refuses to be pinned down, living in the space between reality and imagination. Picture her once more, standing on the prow of a longship as waves crashed against its sides. The spray of salt water soaked her cloak, her short hair whipped by the wind. Warriors surrounded her, men hardened by raids and bloodshed. Yet in their eyes was respect, not doubt. The sea roared, but she shouted louder, guiding them through the storm. In that moment, it did not matter if she was flesh and blood or myth. What mattered was the image she left behind, a shield maiden unbroken by storm or steel. Legends are not always lies. Sometimes they are truths sharpened into weapons, shaped to inspire those who listen. Lagertha may never have drawn her blade in battle, may never have commanded warriors on the waves. But the fact that her story was told at all, that she endures across centuries, speaks of a deeper truth. She became the symbol of strength, of resistance, of the possibility that even in a world ruled by men, a woman could raise her shield and fight. As the first chapter of her saga closes, one truth lingers like the echo of a battle horn. Lagertha was not meant to vanish. Whether she walked the earth as a warrior, or only lived in the firelit voices of poets, her presence is felt still. She is both truth and myth, both woman and legend, a shield raised against the silence of time. The storm of legends carried her name further, whispered from hall to hall. Lagertha was no longer just a woman who raised a shield, she was becoming a symbol. But every symbol has a shadow. And in hers there was always the question, how much of this was truth and how much was saga? They said she fought beside Ragnar, her courage turning the tide in desperate battles. Arrows hissed through the air, shields splintered under heavy axes, and men fell screaming into the mud. In the clash of steel, she stood unbroken. To those who watched, she was the storm itself, relentless and untamed. Some claimed her presence was enough to rally an entire army. Others whispered that the skalds had woven her image into the story to make it greater than it truly was. Yet even a warrior needs allies. One story speaks of a companion, whose name has been lost to time, standing with her on raids, shoulder to shoulder in the shield wall. Some say this figure was a sister in arms, a woman like her, sworn to fight despite the odds. Others insist it was a man, a loyal friend who saw in her not weakness but equal strength. What is certain is that in every saga, Lagertha never stood entirely alone. Someone was there in the shadows, watching her back when blades came too close. Together they raided foreign shores. Smoke rose from burning villages, and the cries of war echoed across the waves. Picture the longships pulling onto the sand, oars dripping with salt water, warriors leaping onto the shore with fury in their eyes. Lagertha's shield was the first to strike the earth, her boots the first to march into the fray. The clash was brutal, man against man, steel against steel. She fought with the precision of one who understood that hesitation meant death. In these moments, her legend grew sharper. Men swore they saw her cleave enemies with a strength no woman should possess. Blood spattered her cloak, her spear thrust unyielding, her eyes burning with that same cold determination. The sagas write that she killed more men than many of Ragnar's fiercest warriors. And yet, history is quieter. The chronicles preserve no names of the fallen at her hand. Was this exaggeration? Or was it truth, ignored by the scribes of her time? There is an intimacy in the telling of her story. Between the battles, the sagas paint her as loyal to Ragnar, loyal to her people, loyal to the destiny she carried like a weight across her shoulders. But loyalty was not enough to shield her from betrayal. As Ragnar rose in power, stories of love and jealousy circled like wolves. Some say she was cast aside, abandoned for another. Others claim she left, unwilling to be bound to a man's shadow. In either case, her heart bore scars deeper than any blade could carve. Still she endured. In the flickering firelight of the mead halls, her ally remained at her side. Together they forged a bond not out of romance but out of survival. Trust, hard-won and fragile, became their greatest weapon. And when enemies rose once more, when blood threatened to drown the fields, Lagertha did not falter. The sagas recall one battle in chilling detail. Shields locked together in the wall, warriors pressed so tightly that breath came short. The enemy roared and charged, hammer striking shields, arrows raining down. The ground turned to mud underfoot, red with blood. Lagertha stood in the thick of it, her shield rattling with each blow. With a cry, she surged forward, driving her spear through the chest of an enemy. Around her, men fell, but she remained, a storm bound in human form. Was it truly so? Or was it the skalds, weaving her into the saga to give their tales the fire they needed to survive the ages? The truth is uncertain, but the image is undeniable. Lagertha was no longer only a wife or mother. She was warrior, ally, and leader. She became a reflection of the struggle every soul faced in the harsh north, man or woman, bound to fight or perish. And in the echoes of battle, her story carries forward, preparing for the storm that waits in the distance. Snow fell heavier that night, each flake glowing red in the firelight of burning villages. Lagertha stood in the shield wall once more, her arm aching, her shield split and scarred, but her will unbroken. Around her, warriors roared, clashing in chaos, yet her presence cut through the storm like a beacon. She raised her sword high, a single cry tearing from her lips, one that echoed through the fjord. Arrows rained down, spears shattered, and still she advanced. Those who fought beside her swore they had never seen courage take human shape, until that moment. But courage always comes with a cost. The mysterious ally who had fought at her side fell among the carnage, face finally revealed in the red haze of battle. Some skalds would later twist the tale, giving him names, turning him into a hero equal to Lagertha herself. Yet in truth, history leaves him nameless, a shadow who sacrificed everything. When the battle ended, Lagertha stood alone among the wreckage. Her hair was matted with blood, her shield splintered beyond use, and yet she lifted her chin with unyielding pride. To some, she was merely a farmer's daughter who had risen by chance. To others, she was the daughter of gods, a shield maiden blessed by the Norns themselves. The sagas whispered that she fought with a bear and a hound at her side, beasts conjured from Odin's own will. Historians, however, speak of tactics, of strategy, of a woman clever enough to command men who underestimated her. Myth paints her as legend, truth shows her as something greater, real. In the Great Hall, songs would rise, painting her victories brighter, her losses smaller, until she became untouchable. Yet if you stand by the graves of the Viking age in silence, with the wind howling through broken stones, you might feel her presence not as a goddess, but as a woman who fought, bled, and endured. That is the heart of Lagertha's story, not Shieldmaiden or myth, not legend or fable, but proof that even in a world built for men, one woman carved her name into eternity. And so, when you hear the sagas sing her name, ask yourself, was she truth or was she myth? Perhaps she was both. If you want more stories of Vikings, legends born of fire and steel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.